Okay, we be live. Hi everyone. We're gonna be doing Q&A. We have a lot of Patreon questions today. We're gonna try to go through them fast, and then after we're done with the Patreon questions, I'm gonna post a link in the YouTube's community tab. So only for our YouTube members. So any YouTube members, if they want, they could join up. They will come up and ask me or talk to me live on air with the audio and video, or just audio if they prefer. But yeah, so we're going to start with the Patreon questions. And if you want to be able to ask your questions in next week, and you're not a patron, you could become a patron today. Link in the description. Or if you would rather, instead of posting your questions, if you would rather just talk to me live on air, you could become a YouTube member. So there's two. See, this is good. We have different um, features, different perks. Yeah, different perks for different, memberships. Patrons post your questions, we answer, and YouTube members, you come and talk to us live on air. Cool. Susanna Higgs boson is saying Susanna's glowing.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Oh, Secular Sakai is saying Durud, everyone. For people who don't know, Durud is a very Persian way of saying hi. Durud. Music guy saying audio is good. Gasian American saying love the hair down and look. Yes, Susanna.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why are you getting all the compliments today?
Because I'm so cute.
Like, woo, Q&A. All right, let's get to it. What's the first Patreon question? Yeah.
We have a lot of Patreon questions today, and a lot of them are very juicy and interesting. So let's get into sorry, some of these questions are funny. Okay, so I want to hear about this. Armin, this is very much in your genre, in your wheelhouse. Explain to us, because I want to know. Music Guy's asking thoughts on the Farsi Twitter trend hashtag macaroni, and also the recent killing of protesters in Iran. For those who are not aware, there's huge shortages going on around Iran, and what's happening significantly is there's a massive pasta shortage. Is it a shortage, or the price is also getting jacked up too? Like super high. And this is hitting the lower class very hard. It's hence why macaroni is trending.
Well, I mean, some people were switching from rice to macaroni because of like other things price. Now that because of so many people switching, now the prices of that is I think that's what's happening. I don't know exactly what's behind it, but prices of food in general is increasing, and
like 300% in some places.
It's crazy.
That's
it's
crazy.
Like bread prices are up, and that is hitting the poor. So the most, because a lot of people rely, a huge part of the food intake of the poor people is bread. So if bread prices go up, that is a major percentage of their entire daily expense going up, right? So because of the Ukraine-Russia war, prices of food everywhere is growing. However, Iran is getting particularly hit hard. I mean, some and a few other places because of mismanagement, like very terrible management by the authorities, right? However, we also get reminded by a lot of protesters right now that this is not just about being hungry, okay? Every time people come out in the streets because of economic reasons, they want to remind you that this is more than just us being upset over, not higher food prices, or because if you frame it like that, a lot of people are getting angry as if like that's the entirety of the problem, like as if if the food prices go down, they will be happy, right? A lot of protesters want to remind you that we're done with this regime. Like the entire legitimacy of everything about this regime is like out the window. So don't just make this is a a lot of, because there are some commentators who are like, oh, don't make this political. This is just an economical complaint, and this is just a, and people, and the
It's
protesters are
definitely
like,
political.
hey, no, this is political. This is not just economical, it's political. We want this regime gone. So yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, a lot of people we are talking to are very much stressing, like, no, the people in the streets are wanting revolution. They're asking for revolution. This isn't
Yeah,
just
this,
yeah.
we want food, but we don't want just food. We want this regime gone, right? It's not just food, it's everything. Yeah.
So what do you think that means?
What do you mean? Like,
I
as
know
in
you. I mean, we
predictions?
can't really make predictions here.
Yeah. I mean, I can't. Um,
Okay.
I think, okay, things are gonna get a lot worse, maybe, before it gets better. Not based on what I'm saying, based on what some it could. Actually, I have a. I'll let you know more next week, because I have a show coming up in on Saturday, I think, with a whole bunch of Iranian economists in Persian. So, like, leading Persian like experts, right? Yeah. So on the Persian show, like 4 or 5, I think 4, um, from different universities, like from Cambridge, Harvard, Tehran University. These are Iranian economists, and I'm going to ask them about how things are and where are things heading. So, but the
Guys,
show is
this is why I'm learning Farsi, because I need to be able to consume this content firsthand.
yeah. So that show is going to be in Persian on the Persian channel, but I'll have a better understanding once I've done that show.
Yeah, bring back a report for the rest of us, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a funny quick question.
Wait, so let me just answer this. Asian American saying, are they in Iran or elsewhere? It's a mix. It's a mix of America and in Iran. Yeah. Okay, go on. Sorry.
This is just a funny quick question. Secular Proton is asking, do you sometimes find it to be too much work to take care of Callie and her sister? I'm forgetting her name. Poochie.
Oh, Poochie. I have help. I have a lot of help, so not that it's fine. I just want to report that Poochie seems to be into Callie. Like, she be humping her a lot, and they're both girls. So my daughters, one of them at least, is a lesbian, apparently.
And I'm fully supportive.
Yes, I'm very supportive of her choices.
I've become such a corrupter to the land. Even my dogs are lesbians now.
Yeah.
So
I have video footage of that, by the way. I sent it to Susanna.
I've seen it. I'm like, oh my god. So
wait, Rick is saying, why can't I donate or be a member anymore from anyone? You can.
Yes,
you can be a member. You can be a member. You can be a member. And again, reminder to everybody: if you're a YouTube member, halfway through the show, you can come and talk to us live on air. So again, halfway through the show, we'll do that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is a question from Secular Sakai, who's asking, could you discuss the American Redoubt movement? In your opinions, are they a potentially dangerous Christian nationalist doomsday preppers, or just eccentric and religiously conservative survivalist enthusiasts? Armin, have you ever heard of the Great American Redoubt?
No, have you?
I have, in fact.
Okay.
So
you answered.
It's okay, guys. This is going to be a rough summary because it's been a little while since I've gotten information about this group. So the Great American Redoubt is an effort for, some aspects of it are an effort for people to secede the eastern part of Washington state, Idaho, Montana, and I think Wyoming into its own country. They're going to secede from the United States. And they're, based on what I've seen about this group, they basically are like, big Trump supporters. They believe in the big lie. They have a lot of issues with the federal government, and they kind of want to go off the grid and get back to these freedoms that they feel like big government has taken away from them, or that it no longer even represents them, like it's an illegitimate government, is what some of them believe. And so are they Christian nationalist doomsday preppers? Are they just, survivalists who are conservative? I think it's all of the above. I think there's a large mix from what I've seen, and the beliefs greatly vary from person to person, and there's a lot of overlap in between these groups and the different ideologies. So I don't know if you can say that it's one thing or one or the other, but they seem to. They have a lot of they have a lot of interesting ideas. They have a lot of interesting thoughts. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So next question is from Kaz Lopez. So I'm going to do a little bit of, and it's so long that you can't see all of it on YouTube. Okay. So I'm going to do a little editorializing of this question. Kaz is asking, is Modi not acting like an Islamist with nationalist tendencies by identifying the country with one religion and using religious rhetoric as nationalism and claiming historical wrongs and linking that to the enemy and his assumed enemy religion? And for example, stating that they were always being wrong and hold back, identify, then was and then also claiming that they're hurt by religious sentiments and by limiting minority rights. Also claiming to encounter everywhere. Also, they're always claiming to encounter religious phobia. I mean, I think I never heard the term Hindu phobia before Modi assumed office. I think Modi just learned much of this from Erdogan. So do you think Modi acts like an Islamist just with saffron lenses?
I don't think it's Modi who's learning it from Erdogan. I think like it's a collect. I don't think it's that as intentional as you think it is. I think it's more organic. I think it's more, a lot of people in India, including a lot of Hindus, learning that, like, being exposed to that from Muslim community and slowly, um, being influenced by that. And the politicians, including Modi, are being influenced by their electorate, and being including by their voter base. So I don't think it's like, oh, Modi is like, oh, we should learn from these Islamists. Like, look at, oh, they're using these tactics. We should develop that. And then, like, I think it's more of a bottom up approach rather than a top down. They're looking at their people and what they're saying, and they're just responding to what works for them to get elected. So yeah, I think the problem lies from within the society, and the politicians are just a reflection of that.
I think it's a pretty fair comparison because, well, Islamism, I hate when people say, oh, is political Islam, because Islam is political. Like, let's be clear. But an Islamist is someone who wants to exert Islamic values and tenets within their political system. They're trying to integrate that into their political system. And Hindutva is politicized Hinduism. Although what makes it a little bit different is it's more like politicized Hindu identity or identitarian politics. It's less of implementing Hinduism itself into the government and more about my reading of it. I'm not reading, like perception is it's much more about just politicizing Hindu identity and integrating that into the state. So there are some similarities, but also important differences.
Right. By the way, so Hinduism itself is also political, but Hindutva ideology, which is something like a mutation of Hinduism to some, as deformed as Hinduism is as a religion, Hindutva is like something else. I think that is it's obviously that is more comparable to Islam, whatever Hindutva is, than Hinduism. You know what I mean? Because it's
Yes.
Hindutva is extremely political and extremely expansionist and top down. So yeah, Hindutva and Islam are very, very comparable.
Yeah,
think.
because correct
Yeah.
people in the live chat, correct me if I'm wrong. Hindutva literally translates to Hinduness. It's about the
Right.
Hinduness. It's about that belies an identity, not
Right.
necessarily an ideology per se in a strict sense.
Well, I mean, those
It
two
is an
things.
ideology, but I mean that
Yeah.
actual word itself.
Yeah. Okay. 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 Let's move on.
Okay. So the next question is about Tunisia. D is asking, quote, people want democracy, and quote, Syed has led the country to starvation, were two slogans chanted by the protesters in Tunisia over the weekend. Do you think the country will make it back to democracy or continue as a dictatorship? For those who are not aware, Tunisia recently went through a coup that seemed like it was the end of the only democracy that made it through the Arab Spring. And now we're seeing this again. Armin, have you been following this news?
I mean, not any more than the fact that the whole promise of this is a temporary takeover and democracy would be back. We were like, doesn't like we like a lot of we were suspicious. We were very suspicious. It's like,
I'm waiting.
yeah, we were waiting, and then like the suspicion was justified. Like, it's so sad to see, like, because we were so hopeful about the prospects of at least one country benefiting from the Arab Spring for democracy to
In the
take
short
hold.
term.
Yeah, I mean, this is. Honestly, I don't know how to. I can't predict the future, but it doesn't seem good. It just seems like, because in these regions, once you lose democracy, getting it back is just going to take like, seven, nations coming out and helping. Like, it's just like, it doesn't, it seems like you have to do so much to bring democracy to these regions, and so once you lose it, you lost it for another decade or two. You know what I mean? So I hope
Oh,
I'm wrong
minimum.
about that. Yeah, yeah. So I hope I'm wrong about this, but like but the failure of Arab Spring is so good for people, like for the Gulf Arab countries, for the monarchies, because it shows to the Islamic world that there's no alternative. Don't do popular uprisings. This is what you don't deserve democracy. You're not ready for democracy. Um, and the Gulf Arab countries did their best. I mean, their politicians, not the entire country, did their best to make sure that they fail, especially for this reason. And this is such a major win for Saudi Arabia, for the UAE, for Bahrain, for Egypt. Um, Anyways, so I don't know. I don't have anything positive to say about this. But what do you think?
Well, it'll be interesting because the entire Middle East North African region is going to be hit by the grain shortages from Russia and Ukraine. So that might compound these issues as well. And food instability and unemployment is what led to the initial, uprising in Tunisia that started the Arab Spring to begin with. So I don't know. It's interesting to consider.
Oh yeah, actually that's a very oh yeah, actually that's very smart. Yeah, that's a very good point. I forgot about that. Yes. Um yeah, you have to consider, yeah, we might have, if we
So
wait a
some
little
people are
bit.
saying there will be an Arab Spring 2.0.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. This is we will see, but if that's a very good point. The food insecurity and water shortages and climate change are major fuels for protest. So
Well,
maybe
they're
in a
also
year.
fuels for coups too.
Coups, yes, exactly. So political instability is something that a lot of experts
Are
are
predicting,
predicting. Yeah.
to say
So
the
we'll see.
least.
Yes. By the way, Rick just became a patron. Thank you so much, Rick. So, Rick, the way that the Q and what you do is, if you want to participate in the Q&A as a patron, when we post links to these live streams, you could post your questions at the bottom of the post, right? And then we'll ask your questions. So hopefully we'll have your questions in future Q&A. But thank you for
Thank
supporting
you
us,
so much
Rick.
for joining, Rick. Happy to have you. Thank you for
Yeah.
supporting. So let's get into some dawah drama.
Ooh,
Okay, so Higgs Boson is asking, what's the need for Muslim debaters like Ali Dawah and Muhammad Hijab to win the debate and humiliate the opponent? The kind of language they use, like pusillanimous and personal attacks, makes it seem like they're at war. It's not like their goal is winning over the other side is accomplished by these kinds of tactics. Why do you think that they use such excessive ad hominems and chest beating?
The audience likes it, they get more views, and therefore they get more money. Easy. The audience likes a blood sport. So the more you do that, the more people will be engaged, the more they will continue. They want and the audience, they like it because they don't like the other side. So they want to believe that they were crushed, they were humiliated. They want to believe that the other side was upset. And all the things that they want to do to you to make you upset, they're hoping that Muhammad Hijab or Ali Dawah, they're like, oh, thank you, we don't like these guys, and you made them upset, and you humiliated them, you made them look weak and pathetic. So so it's basically that. It's basically satisfying that desire.
Do you think that they justify that they're a good representative from Islam because even though they're using these kinds of like tactics, ultimately they're exposing more people to an Islamic message because they're manipulating algorithms and user engagement?
Yeah. So actually, that's a very good point. So first of all, I don't think first of all, they don't think it's immoral because they're like, what part of what we're doing immoral? You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing Islamically that you could say that about what I'm doing that is wrong. But even if you think like maybe there are nicer ways to talk, they like, look, the numbers I have, it justifies my method. Like at the end of the day, if my method leads to more people watching my videos, and more people who are being exposed to an Islamic message because of what I'm doing. So shut up, like, you're wrong, I'm right,
Yeah, because there are lots of Muslims that don't like him because they're like, you guys are not good representatives of Islam at all. They get a lot of backlash because of it. But I think that's probably how they justify it.
Yeah, but what the critics, what's the point? I mean, Islam was spread by sword. How this is like in many places, right? So how is this
Well, remember when
relatively?
Sajid Lippam was like embarrassed by Ali Dawah's behavior in his debate with apostate prophet, and he says other critics literally point to us and say we don't have to do work because you guys embarrass Islam for us. Like, this is who we're lifting up as a representative. Like, that was his criticism.
Yeah, but not because they were mean. Mostly because, it's because they're doing philosophy or using intellect. That's his main criticism. He's like, I think that's his main issue with them. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the next question. Because
okay, this is juicy. I want to get into this. Music is asking, Hezbollah is losing parliamentary majority in the Lebanese elections. Instead, the far-right Lebanese Christians, who are pro-Saudi, are winning those seats. Is this a positive change for Lebanon? I saw you watching some videos about what's going on in Lebanon right now. Tell us what you learned.
Well, okay, so first of all, just understand that Hezbollah is still going to be a major power in Lebanon. Okay, so they have a military power, so their political power is reduced by somewhat, but don't completely dismiss them in Lebanon. One, okay. Second of all, it's going to be very hard right now. So as Hezbollah is horrible, okay. So let me get that clear, okay. But it's also going to continue to be horrible because now that with nobody having a majority, we went from Hezbollah being able to do things that is not good for Lebanon to now nobody being able to do anything, which is also horrible for Lebanon. You know what I mean? Like, we might have, because there's no majority and these people are so fundamentally against each other. I mean, this is again, this is a prediction by experts. I don't know if this is going to be true, but Lebanon right now needs decisions, right? And this political gridlock is going to make it very difficult to move forward to make decisions that needs to be taken, right? It's just like it's such a mess, and it's a mess that, you know, Hezbollah not being having less power, or these pro-Saudi Lebanese Christians having more power. It's just none of this is going to even begin to address the mess that Lebanon's economy is in. It's just so fundamentally a broken system that the only benefit is like, oh, maybe like Hezbollah is not going to have like less of an influence when it comes to some militias doing it's just, I don't know, like I just think like this is like relative to what's needed, this is such an insignificant thing that is happening. It even, yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. But what do
I
you think?
think
You know, yeah,
I think Lebanon needs a new constitution because the confessional system is broken. It's not working. I understand why it was created at the time and the specific issues it was trying to address, but over
right.
time, it continues to fail and it continues to breed corruption. And also, the whole idea of a confessional system, I mean, I just oppose it because of how I feel about secularism. And I feel it's really antithetical to like my values on that. But even beyond just my own personal beliefs, like it's clearly not serving the people well.
Yeah, no, yeah. Lebanon needs a new everything, new constitution, a new. It, it's just like the way that they have things set up. It's just like made to fail. Like the whole political system is made to fail, and the financial system. It's like, yeah.
Do you
But
think
hey,
you'll
well,
any
no,
secular jihadist episode about what's going on in Lebanon soon?
yeah,
I
maybe we'll
see
see.
that. Like,
Yeah, we could.
what's going
Yeah,
on with Hezbollah?
Kala in the
I'm
live
putting in
chat.
my 2 cents.
Yeah, Kello and the live chat is saying the Beirut used to be the Paris of the Levant. Yeah, but it was made out of that was made on top of unsustainable debt. It was a house of cards to begin with, based on the system that the whole thing, based on the way that the whole thing was built. Like it was doomed to fail, given the structure. Um. Oh wow! Look at this.
Okay.
Arjun is saying, "Is it just me or is Susanna hot with free hair?" Yeah.
Thank you,
No.
Arjun. Maybe it's just the change. I got a haircut. People are like, "Oh, this is different." um.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question that I did some research on today, very briefly. Paul Rusesabagina, a Rwandan Belgian citizen, has been illegally abducted and sentenced to 25 years in prison on terror charges by the authoritarian regime of Paul Kagame. The film Hotel Rwanda is based on his life after he saved over 1,200 Tutsis and other targeted people during the Rwandan genocide. He has also been a fierce critic of the Kagame government. Have either of you kept up with this case, and do you believe that there is any chance for his release? So I first became aware of this whole situation back a few months ago when he was convicted and then sentenced. And one thing I have to be honest about is that the media coverage that you get from Western media sources or English speaking news seems to be very one-sided. Like they just continue to reiterate that he was extradited against his will, like everything from about his trial seemingly can't be trusted. International rights bodies are condemning it, all this stuff. His family are, denying the conviction and the sentencing. They're protesting, but I haven't really gotten a sense from this reporting of like what is actually he being accused of, and is there legitimate evidence against him? Because then every now and then you get a little bit in piece where there are people like, no, he's guilty of this. And it's difficult for me to really distinguish what's going on.
The main character in the movie Hotel Rwanda is in jail.
Yes.
Oh
He
my
was
God.
basically abducted back to Rwanda.
Okay, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And people are saying it's either because he speaks out against the autocratic government in Rwanda, and some people are saying no, he has legitimate links to various militia groups because he has, and you can see this on record. I've watched the video. He has openly advocated for overthrowing the current Rwandan government. He's saying by
I'm
any
seeing a
means
picture of
necessary.
him with Bush giving him a Medal of Honor. Bush,
Yes.
wow. And that man, the man that got a Medal of Honor from Bush, is in prison. I would think the United States would do something about that. Okay.
He's a
Oh wow,
US
that's a,
resident too. So the US government has like spoken about it. I don't know how much they're actually what they're doing behind closed doors. Um but yeah, there are people who are like, yeah, he's openly advocated for overthrowing the government. They allege that he has like text messages with various liberatory militias and maybe even sent them money, maybe even financially supported them. Um so it's hard to tell how much of this is true because he was a very outspoken critic of the Rwandan government. Um, yeah, how likely is it that he'll be released? I really have no idea. I have no idea. Anonymous Owl just became a member. Thank you for becoming a member. And I'm on anonymous anonymous owl. Thank you.
Anonymous Owl. Yeah, thank you so much for being a member.
Which means we're actually getting very close to being able to add more emojis. We need a few more members before we
how
can
many
add
members
more
do we need?
emojis. Well, last time I checked, we needed 5.
Okay, so we need 4 now. 4 more members, and we could add more emojis. Yes.
And I
Oh, D
have
is
like a ton of emojis in the vault. We just need more members to unleash them upon.
I just want to highlight this comment because it's a responsible way to talk about things. If D is saying, yes, I can't have an opinion because of different narratives and I don't know the truth. See, this is a responsible
Exactly,
way.
D. See, this is the kind of coverage you get at Atheist Republic.
Yes.
This is what we tell you. I tell you what I know, and I tell you also what I do not know.
Right. By the way, guys, if you're a member, halfway through the show Q&A, I'm going to post a link in the member tab, in the community tab, and where only members can see. And if you want, you could come and talk to me and ask any questions for a bit. Yeah, but in case anyone is interested, but we need to go a little bit faster through the questions because we're not finishing them fast enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Asian American is asking, okay, for this, the background of this is that we say Yahtzee instead of the bad people from World War II. Okay, so that's the code we're using here. Okay. So Asian American says a Yahtzee ambassador, John Rabi, used his Yahtzee privilege to shelter and protect women from Nanjing from the Japanese soldiers. He would often stop Japanese soldiers mid RAPE and give the Chinese victims shelter in the German consulate. As an ambassador from Yahtzee Germany, he used his Yahtzee privilege as the two nations were allies. In Nanjing, there was a statue of him for his deeds. Although Winston Churchill kept London calm and helped them carry on, his policies also starved 5 million Bengali to death. And then, informed of the famine, Churchill asked why Gandhi hadn't died yet without mention of food. How do you think the omission of these details in most Western history textbooks affects Western self-perception? If they were taught this, if they were to be taught, how should this be taught in your respective countries? So basically, there was a guy, he was a Yahtzee, but he did very good things and he helped people. And
I
he's
would
being
argue he
honored
wasn't
for
a
his good
Yahtzee.
deeds.
I would argue he wasn't a Yahtzee. He was only a Yahtzee by name.
Well, we don't
Label.
know how much of the actual ideology of Yahtzeeism that he. I mean, I don't know how much of it was actually a sincerely held belief.
Okay, possibly. So don't accuse him. You don't know. Maybe he wasn't actually a Yahtzee.
Yeah, he was a Yahtzee ambassador. We can say that for sure.
Right. I mean, I think Western countries are, as much as you could point to bias in favor of Western leaders, I would actually argue that Western countries are the best at revisiting their history and being more honest about it. self-criticizing, and like the level of self-reflection and revisiting history and be like, maybe these people were not heroes, happens. I mean, maybe it doesn't happen as much as it should, but it happens almost more than anywhere else in every
I would
other
agree.
country. Yeah, like, so I mean, like in United States, Canada, Western Europe, looking at these people with a more critical eye and having disagreements. And people are like, no, no, Churchill was like a hero. People are like, no, he was not. He was a criminal. He committed genocide. And people are like, this discussion does happen in Western countries. Like in Canada, they're like, maybe we shouldn't be so proud of our founders. Like, and some in the United States are like, oh, no, some of our founders did some horrible things and they had slaves, and this was an issue here, right? I mean, these are things that you know, in Iran they don't talk about whether Khomeini was good or bad. Like, I mean, in China, the founders like Mao, he's like seen as a holy figure. I mean, even in less authoritarian countries that are still not part of these like Western European or North American countries, they still have a one-sided history that is centered over making their founders or the people that they celebrate as like better than they actually were. Like, so I think like we should acknowledge how self-critical and sometimes too self-critical um North American and Western European countries have become. But again, too self-critical is not that bad. Okay, as much as cringy as it could get sometimes, it's far better to be have a problem on that side than countries that
I would
make
agree.
pro- saints and prophets out of their founders and their heroes. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
don't put them on a pedestal. I think, yeah, how should it be taught? Like, we should just teach more complexity. Like, you can
Yes.
be part of an evil regime, but still assist those in need around you. Like, that can be honored. Maybe we don't like other things he believed. Um,
Yeah.
Rick is saying Western culture and their academic freedom was way more than any other country in the world. I think
Yes.
that's
We're not.
empirically measured to be true as well.
Yeah, but by the way, we're not suggesting that it can it can't improve. Like, obviously, we could still make it better.
Of course.
But
I would
yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
This is a funny comment. So our local Christian, our local very kind Christian, Bread of Life, is saying, I want to be a member, but I don't want to be a Satan's minion or an antichrist. Is there any chance of making
Ah.
a member category like atheist fan or fan of the Republic?
Oh my
Um,
God! I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna make that specifically for
that's the
anybody.
sweetest thing ever.
Atheist. Which one should I make? Atheist fan or fan of the Republic?
But can you have it be the same, a different name for the same level?
I could make something in between. I could make like $1.50 or something, or like
Okay.
something
Yeah, we can do
closer.
that.
Yeah, yeah, I could do that. I could do that. I
Maybe
will. I
just
will.
fan of the Republic. That's the sweetest thing. It's like I like these atheists, but this is too devil. This is too devil worshiping for
They're,
me.
they're really.
This is too dark sided for me, honey. Like, I might give you guys money, but I'm not going that far. Shoot.
Okay. Fan of the Republic. Okay, I will look into that. Yes. Okay. That's a good name. That's a good name, actually. I like it. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I love that. That's oh, I love that. Um, thank you for thank you for wanting to become a member, Bread of Life. Um, this is a juicy question for Armin. Are the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank instruments of Western imperialism?
Yes, and that's a
Yes.
good thing. And they should keep at it.
And Armin votes yes.
I approve. Please. Okay, so IMF and the World Bank are could be seen as just banks with conditions, and every bank could have its own conditions. Like, people will say like, oh, they have agendas. And I'm going to give you the two sides of it. They're like, well, their agendas are democracy and peace, because just like any other bank. And okay, so let's look at it from three levels. Okay, so when IMF lends you money, for example, they have certain conditions, and people are like, "Oh, these conditions are so harsh, and we don't like it." And like, well, you don't have to enter that agreement with them because they're telling you, hey, we have money. If you want the money, these are our conditions. If you don't like the conditions, you can simply say like, well, no. So people are like, what? People want to defend IMF is like, they're giving you an option that's better than not having any option. Why are you so angry? Right? Why are you so angry where not have imagine if there was no IMF, then you wouldn't even have that option. At least now you have an option that you can say no to if you don't like the conditions, right? Um, but other people would say, well, no, it's not as simple like that, because it's not just the condition, and also people like the conditions that the IMF put. Like if you want to start talking to the defense, for example, is the conditions that they will give you if they want to see their money back. Like just like any other bank, when they come and say like, here's the money, we will give it to you if you cut these, I don't know, cut these government programs and increase your taxes and stuff like that, or do this and this and this. If people say like, oh, that's bad for cutting these programs are bad for the people, and like, well, they are looking at your finances and they say like, if you continue this way, they're not going to get their money back. So what do you want them to do? Do you want them to be a charity case and just give you money with knowing that with this current expense ratio that you have, they're just not going to see it back? Like why would IMF all of a sudden turn from being a bank to a charity case? Like that doesn't make any sense, right? Okay, but the other side is like, okay, so first of all, it's not if you want to speak against IMF, it's like they're not just a bank. Okay, they clearly have an agenda. Ever since their creation, they were transparently trying to make a world where communism fails, and it had a political agenda beyond just making money, in supporting countries where they were more aligned with capitalist democratic countries, right? So it
Mhm.
had a political agenda, and they weren't hiding that. So this is not like a
Mm-mm.
conspiracy, right? And to that I say, based. Thank you so much for defeating communism. So thank you for your service. Um, uh, but that is not imperialism. Okay, imperialism is like, we show up with an army and take your country against your will, and then force your people to be at our service against our will. Maybe you want to call it new imperialism, but if that's new imperialism, well, then what's wrong with that? You know what I mean? It's like, apparently new imperialism is like countries entering into deals voluntarily. Like if imperialism was like, we show up with an army and there's nothing you could do about it, is new imperialism like, hey, here's the deal, do you like to enter or not? Like that doesn't sound very bad. I mean, I don't know what the problem here is. Okay, so the problem seems to be lack of competition. They're like you're not just a
Mm.
bank, you're not just you're like World Bank and IMF, you're not just a bank, you are the bank, right? Like there's no, like, if countries want to like look at options to borrow money and maybe figure out a solution, there's no alternative other than submitting to this capitalist democratic model. Again, to that I also say base. But no, I agree that there needs to be I agree that there needs to be competition, but not to get out of this democratic like human model. I think like there needs to be competitions that also has these standards, just so that they could be more fair, so that they could offer you better terms, so that there's more.
Mm.
I don't want the competition to be like China. Okay, I do want the competitions to be something out, maybe coming out of Europe, or maybe something that comes out of Japan, or something like that, where they also have conditions of better conditions, actually, of secularism, democracy, human rights, um, but but financially, I want the competition to be on the financial terms, so that they provide you better financial terms, not competition on like, we don't care about your human rights record or about your tyranny. I don't want that kind of competition, right? So I do agree that the solution to that is not to get rid of IMF or World Bank or anything like that. The solution to that is to get rid of American, the dominance that they have, and provide competitions, financial competition from other similar institutions. Anyways, so
Jinping's dad says Armin is for Western hegemony. Yes.
well, I mean, I am against the hegemony when it comes. I would rather. I would like to see competition, but again, in what they offering financially. You know what I mean? I don't. I want there to be like the countries being able to see an alternative with better. I want the competition be like, we give you lower interest, or we're like, we have less financial conditions. You know what I mean? I don't want the competition to be like, we don't care about whether you are a democracy or whether you have whether you have a good clean human rights record or not. I don't want the competition to be like that. You know what I mean? And in fact, yeah, so that's basically, I'm not gonna say more. I think if you have competition, it's not just that the countries will have more options. I think that would improve IMF and World Bank itself, because they would have to provide you with better services or better options, because they now have to worry about somebody stealing their lunch.
Don't take my lunch. Okay, so this next question from Oxymoron is quite good. I like this. Oxymoron is asking, you see and read a lot of sick stuff all the time, and you also open up yourselves to a lot of vitriolic backlash. It probably hurts more when you are deeply committed to your work. What inspires you to keep going? I was thinking about this
The
earlier today when
backlash.
for Armin, it's the backlash. Armin does not back down, he doubles down. That's his modus operandi. For me, what I keep going because I know so many people who have sacrificed so much more than me to have the freedom of or ability to do this kind of thing. And I feel like I feel a sense of duty to, I don't know, take on some of that work myself. I keep going because I know so many people who are actively fighting for their freedom or fighting to live in an area where they have more freedom. And I have so many people that I know that don't live in places where they can express themselves or their own dissent safely or without fear. Um, and these are things that I have. And because I have these things, I feel like it would be wasted and an insult to those people, especially to the people who taught me the value of these things, if I didn't take advantage of um, the safety and liberty that I have. Um, and it really makes a difference when I get to help people. I can't help everyone that reaches out to us because we're a small team. Um, but the people that I do get to help, it means so, so much to me when I get to see them posting about like the new life that they fought so hard to achieve. And when I see them enjoy the smallest little things, like I see them post about how they got to see someone playing music and dancing in the street, like a woman dancing in the street. They would never imagine that, like where they grew up. And now they get to see it just as part of their everyday life. And they get to share that and say, look, wow, like look at what I get to experience now. Um, that brings so much meaning to my life. So I keep going. So hopefully I can help more people achieve that and experience those kind of ordinary joys that are so overlooked.
That was beautiful. Wow. Okay. That was great. We
Is
should
there
cut that
anything else
out.
that inspires you to keep going, Armin?
No, I don't. I don't want to add anything to that. That was so beautiful. We shouldn't ruin it. That was beautiful. Let's just keep it like that.
Oh,
And Dia saying that is so sweet. Yeah, yeah.
oh, thank you. Um, okay. So this next
Uh,
question
Wait,
is,
Sam Go saying brought a tear to my eye.
oh, hi,
Oh.
Miguel. Hi. um,
Mm,
oh,
thank
you
you,
guys are
Edson.
so sweet. Um, So let's go to the next question. This next question is from D. D is asking, it's been reported that India released new cybersecurity rules which requires VPN operations to quote maintain names of their customers and their IP addresses and suggested firms unwilling to comply no, and suggested that firms that are unwilling to comply to pull out of the world's second largest internet market. The rules go into effect in late June. What effect will this have on Atheist Republic? That's a very good question. I don't know what kind of options are available to people in India.
Is this an actual true report? Because that would defeat the entire purpose of a VPN.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like this
Okay,
is
I
happening.
don't.
My
Yeah,
understanding, this is happening. So for the past 2 years, India's been having a lot of changes to their IT laws. And it's something that's kind of complicated and something that I've been meaning to really dig into and understand. And this is kind of like the latest iteration in how internet freedom rights are being stripped and privacy. This is also a privacy issue. They're just being stripped from Indian citizens. It's like privacy rights. What privacy rights? The first
this is
iteration was WhatsApp, and now it's continuing. It's a huge problem.
okay. India is one of the best, the most entrepreneurial countries when it comes to the tech industry. Okay, adding more and more regulations around tech and IT is such a disservice to India. Okay, like India, this is one this is one of your main strengths. Let people stop tying the people's hands. You know what I mean? Like I really think that this is an area where India will dominate the entire world over this if if the government stops like standing in their way, like stop adding so many regulations around IT. Like why would you limit your major strength, one of your major strengths? Like
They're like choking out
stand out of the
they're like
way.
choking out their own prosperity just to be like we're in control.
Just get out of the way and let your people loose in the tech industry. Like this is, this is one of the major things that you could be optimistic about futures India is the fact that they have such an entrepreneurial attitude and so many people eager. This is going to bring so many people out of poverty in India. So and regulations can only limit that.
Hmm.
I mean, bad
Actually,
regulations.
this reminds me, guys, if you are passionate about internet freedom in India and privacy rights, you should go support the Indian Freedom, no, the Internet Freedom Foundation of India. They do amazing work. They constantly are employing lawyers to get involved with civil rights cases, taking the government to court to protect your digital rights. And yeah, I cannot speak highly enough of the Internet Freedom Foundation of India. They do incredible work. So go
Yes,
check them out.
yeah, you go support them. This is something is very it cannot be overestimated. This is like very important, for the future of India. And Arjun is confirming what we're saying, like with an example. Read that one.
So Arjun is saying, I'm working in Cisco and they complain about so many regulations about the VPN, and we use VPN daily for work. No, if
Mm.
yeah, there's so many industries where you use this on a daily basis, and actually having that information recorded might actually be a violation of the policies of your institution or other sort of regulatory things. This is something I'm like have to do for my work. Yeah, like this
Mm.
wouldn't stand at all.
Okay, random guy is saying something that is so true, and this is the best thing that China has been responsible for. Okay, the Chinese government. Okay, so thank you to the Chinese government for this. Random guy saying, if it wasn't for China's fascist government, India would have been the fascist state. It's because of China that we are Team USA. Yes, thank you, CCP, for pushing India closer and closer into the arms of secular democracy. It's because of you that they have to join the right team. Also, I just want to quickly highlight Oxymoron. Thank you so much for this message. Oxymoron saying, but take care of yourself. Don't let internet vitriol damage you. Thank you, Oxymoron. I appreciate that message. All right, we should move on because we should have been finishing the Patreon question by now. So we
We only have a
already
few more.
okay.
Um, So next question is from Secular Sakai asking compimism is a
Compromise.
Swedish digital piracy and file sharing quote unquote religion, which argues that the free flow of information is sacred and advocates for the abolition of copyright laws. It's generally considered to be a satirical faith of protest, much like Pastafarianism. Do
Mhm.
you believe such special interests religions are misusing the systems of religious protection laws or cleverly demonstrating how they can be used for secular purposes? Okay, for
Second
the
one.
most part, I would say that it is the latter. They are
Mm.
using religious freedom laws to demonstrate, like, either how ridiculous they are or maybe how unconstitutional they are, or the hypocritical application of religious freedom laws. But in terms of this copanism thing, I do not think I would ever advocate for the abolition of copyright laws. Like,
Mm.
copyright law was such a revolution in civilization. Like, the idea of having your idea be property led to an explosion of entrepreneurship and in technology. It, it's
Mhm.
it like I didn't appreciate until recently how critical of an idea copyright law is. Of course, it is massively abused all the time, constantly. And there's like lots of things that are wrong with it, but I would never advocate for the abolition of it.
Right,
Like,
right, right, right.
private property as a concept is extremely important, and especially towards it's important for proliferating like prosperity. It's crucial.
Perfect answer. I have nothing to
Oh, okay.
add.
Okay, thank you. Um so Kaz is asking, does Erdogan hate France because it symbolizes for him the old Kemalist regime mixed with the West? Because I think Ataturk, his constitution was inspired partly on the French model, not the British or Islamic one. Personally, I think Erdogan is just Western phobic and his criticisms are just hypocrisy and selective and shouldn't be taken seriously. Western leaders should be more assertive to him and I think, like, don't let them be bullied by him. Also, I think that this would be a good thing against authoritarianism, and also wait, it cut off. Where'd it go? Um and also countering populism and anti-democratic trends in the West. Um so what do you think about Erdogan's relationship to France?
I think he's just doing something that appeals to a Muslim audience because he wanted to, mm, you know, Erdogan wanted to do a kind of Ottoman Empire resurgence in the region, increase his influence in the region, both, and they use different methods. So just like the Islamic Republic of Iran tries to use Shiism and more recently Persian identity as a way to exert influence around around the region, and you could see that they're doing that where the Safavid Empire used to be dominant. So it's like a resurgence of either the Safavid or the Sassanid dynasty, depending on the brand of empire that you enjoy the most, either Islamically or the Persian identity. So here's the thing: for Iran, for example, trying to bring hopes and dreams back to the glorious times where there was a Persian Empire, you have to use two different brands, either the Islamic one or the nationalist one, because the nationalist ones are the Sassanid Empire, which is before the Islamic takeover, and the Safavid one is after the Islamic takeover, right? But for Turkey, those two things merged together because the Ottoman Empire was glorious and big and influential after Islam was a thing. So for them, the Turkish Empire, the Turkish identity, and the Islamic identity, you could refer to something that was the same thing at the same time, right? So when Erdogan was trying to do the thing that the Islamic regime was doing, the you know Iran was doing, Iranian government was doing, they leaned into both. They try to pretend like they are the country that is leading the way when it comes to speaking for the not just for Turkey but for the Muslim world. And you can see how much they use the Palestinian cause for that, just like Iran's government uses the Palestinian cause for that, because like you're trying to signal to the world that we are going to be leading the way as an Islamic country. Not Iran. You don't rely on Iran. They're Shia. We're actually. And so Saudi Arabia failed at that because Saudi Arabia made it very clear that they're, um, uh, allies with the evil West and Israel, and they're like not much into supporting the Palestinian cause. So Saudi Arabia, even though it has the two major holy cities, they can be the representative. Their government cannot be representative of Muslims. So it was up to Iran and Turkey. Iran's government was not a good representation because they're Shia, but they're like, you know, so Iran uses the Shia brand to exert influence in the region, but beyond Shia, they try to tell you that they try to take attention away from their Shia identity by focusing on the Palestinian cause and get Muslims to support Iran because they're very much anti-Israel. So Turkey was also leaning into being anti-Israel, but because of their they can't do that as much as Iran can because they have economic relationships with Israel, but also because now they're more desperate, and they're like getting closer and closer to Israel. But and Erdogan has given up on that, but they were trying to also be ahead of Iran when it comes to championing the Palestinian cause. But so you can see like the two ways that they try to exert influence out of their borders is either Islam or Turkish identity, right? So you see that they did that in Azerbaijan. They try to do that in other places where the Turkish identity is influential, but they mainly try to do that with the being representative of Muslims everywhere, right? You can see even Pakistan tried that for with the whole, but this whole French, hitting France is was proven to be a popular way of showing the world that we're leading the way. Uh, um, Actually, the best way that we could support is being like pushing back against China, right? Because Pakistan didn't do that, but Turkey was the actual country that did push against China for the way that they treated, the Muslims in China. So that was like at least one positive. I mean, they did.
Turkey
They started.
deports people back to China. Turkey deports Uyghurs back to
Okay,
China.
I was talking earlier. They started being the main country to push back, but Turkey keeps contradicting itself. Like they go aggressive in one direction, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, oopsie daisy, sorry, we didn't mean that, right? Like they did that with Khashoggi, and they put, they changed mind on that. They changed their mind on CCP. With Israel, they were very aggressively with Israel, but now they're becoming allies. They're having talks with Israel, so they keep swinging from one direction to another. But this French one was a major thing because it was very popular in the Muslim world to push back against France for whatever, anything you want. France is not a very popular country among the Ummah. So that's what I think the reason. That's what I think the reason. It's because of the cartoons, because of its uber secularism, so much secularism that they don't even call it secularism. They're like, we have something way above secularism. We call it laïcité. Um,
Lazy
laïcité. But because of the anti-hijab policies and stuff, it's just such a perfect punching bag for anybody that wants to claim that we represent them, the Ummah, the Islamic community. That took too long. Sorry about that, but yeah.
No, it's fine. Um, yeah, I really liked your answer. Um, Higgs Boson is asking, what do you think of Twitter's left wing bias exposed by Project Veritas? I actually don't know how Project Veritas exposed the left wing bias.
I don't. I wouldn't. Okay, I haven't looked into this, but I
I don't
wouldn't.
think that needed to be exposed. I think
Well, I wouldn't trust anything from Project Veritas. Like, have you
also that,
seen?
mostly that.
Yeah, I mean, I would be very, very, very skeptical about. Like, maybe this is true. Maybe this is something that they did well, but they don't have a good record. They're extremely manipulative about the way that they expose things. Like maybe you should look into more of people who've exposed Project Veritas. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I would
The
be. I wouldn't consider Project Veritas a source for me to get any information from. If anything is being exposed, I would rather find a better source from it. for it.
Okay,
But yeah,
but
go on.
regardless of Veritas, isn't it obvious that Twitter has a left-wing bias?
Yeah. I mean, what do you mean? Like Twitter users or Twitter depends on what you mean.
Enforcement,
Oh yeah, okay.
community standards and enforcement. I feel
But
like that's an
like
obvious yes.
but what do you mean by left wing bias? If you're talking about, I mean, if we're talking about social issues, I hope they have a left wing bias, because right, like left wing bias means like what, like pro LGBT, pro
Mm-hmm.
women's, pro. Well, I hope so. Like I mean, like what? Like
Yeah, the
I
only
mean,
problem is that
thank you.
they're um when it gets like too far left.
Yeah, so left wing
People are
bias is a
worried
good.
about that.
So this is what I mean. Okay, so are you talking about like crazy wokeists? Because
Mm-hmm.
if that's what you're talking about, don't call it a left wing bias, because a left wing bias is a good thing. A left wing bias means that you are um, pro, I don't know, human rights, gay rights, trans rights, women rights. That's what a left wing bias means. Like, why have we let wokeism to ruin like the brand of leftism, right? Maybe say like, what are we talking about at left wing bias? Um, I'm left wing. You know what I mean? I mean, you should all be left wing. You should want you should want these corporations to have left wing biases, because yeah. Anyways.
Well, I mean, that
But
also reflects like they're also appealing to the American market. Like that's where they're
yeah.
based. Like Americans are more progressive than they've ever been.
Mhm.
America has a left-wing bias. I don't know, kind of.
Yeah, America has a left wing bias, so private companies would be representative of American people, given that they're in America. So, yeah, they should have a left wing bias.
Yeah.
But again, we have to know exactly what you mean by left wing bias.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what this claim is here.
Yeah.
Um, and final patron question. Well, actually, okay. Higgs Boson is asking, what are your thoughts on Saladin and Richard the Lionheart? How crazy were the Knights Templar and Hospitallers during the Crusade? I actually don't know like anything about this.
I don't think. Okay, so here's the thing. We don't. I don't know. Everything we learn about these two has been through biased, extremely biased, representations of who they were and what they did. So I don't really know if many people know exactly about them, Saladin or Richard the Lionheart's actual, like actually how they were. I don't really know, right? Because Saladin seems like one of the best people that ever was, not just from military capabilities, but also like if you read records of how he was, he just seems like the most awesome dude ever. You know what I mean? But I don't know how much of that is true. Like maybe he was just a war hero that like his accounts of him was constantly made better and better and better because of throughout time, because of how much people liked the fact that he was victorious in his battles, right? um if okay, so if the reports, I don't know much about Richard Lionheart, okay, and his reports of him, but if the reports are true, Saladin was very, very kind to like he was very humanist when it comes to how he treated the people who he defeated. Okay, like if the reports on my side, from the Islamic side, is true, the Christians were very brutal to innocent civilians after they conquered them, and Saladin wasn't. Saladin was very kind and treated let people go when leave the city if they wanted to, didn't mistreat them, didn't abuse them. Okay, so I don't know how much of that is true, but if that is true, he seems to be um, he managed to not violate not commit war crimes based on today's standards. Even based on today's standards, he seemed to have been somebody that was um, very careful not to do any violate any human rights violations based on what we accept as a human rights violation. So but I don't know how true is that is. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, we got a donation. Oh,
Yes. Let me see if I Harman Meet Singh donated $5. Thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Harman. We appreciate
And
it. And he has a little Bhagat Singh as his icon.
and Qasem is using this because guys, we don't see the donations on StreamYard. So Qasem has this dollar sign and this bell item to notify us that there was a donation, so that he makes sure that we see that. So thank you, Qasem. Yeah, and thank you for the donation. Um. Okay.
That was the end of our
Let's.
patron questions. Although
Oh, what?
we, yeah,
Okay,
we
good.
did. I teed up some live chat questions for you. Although we should answer Rick's question because he just became a patron.
Okay, wait. Before you do, okay, let's do that. But also I want to post the link to anybody wanting to come up. If they no pressure, guys. I know some of you are like, I don't want to come up. It's get anxiety. I get stage anxiety. I like, okay, so this is no pressure to anybody who's a YouTube member, but this I'll just put it there just in case, and it's only going to be visible to members, okay, to YouTube members. If you okay, link is there now. Okay, answer this one. Yeah, Rick.
Maybe it's pronounced Reek. Reek is asking, I have a question. Why is it that every country in the world is running towards authoritarian slash the extreme right wing? Can we expect this trend to slow down or change in the near future? Yeah, this is something that is very worrying. There's various agencies or think houses that, track like democratic trends. And unfortunately, in the past few years, there's been more countries going towards authoritarianism than towards democracy, including the United States. Took a big back step in that report as well. Um, Armin, do you have any theories about what we can attribute this trend towards, or what we can attribute it to?
What we can attribute religion is one main force behind all of this, right? But not just religion, other things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, so the problem also is that when countries go democratic and liberal, it does make them stronger, right? Both monetarily and politically makes them stronger, but all that strength and power is so tempting to just like, oh my god, look at it. It's like, why don't we just like take it and use it to, you know what I mean? Because all of a sudden when there's so much wealth and so much political power, it just attracts a lot of authoritarian tendencies, right? So this is why you see the pendulum, right? So you see the pendulum go through like liberal and democratic, and then all of a sudden the country gets stronger and wealthy, and that attracts a lot of demand for corruption and authoritarianism, and then they grab it, and then the authoritarianism makes things a lot less efficient and weaker and less wealthy, and therefore eventually it will break apart, and then we'll go through this motion, again and again. But so as you notice the pendulum swinging back and forth between authoritarianism and liberalism throughout history, the general, the average, the midpoint of this seems to be trending upwards, right? So we had this pendulum swing, for the past, I don't know, 10,000 years, but the center of this pendulum swing used to be a lot more authoritarian. So we had a huge surge in democracy and liberalism in the past 100 years. So this backward trend might be just a slight move backwards, right? I
Mm.
mean, if you look at how bad things were 100 years, even though things look like they're moving in the wrong direction right now, it's very insignificant compared to how much progress we have made. However, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be worried and you shouldn't be fighting back against it, because if you don't, it could swing too far back, right? Um, but I'm just telling you, like, if you look at the long, if you zoom out and look at it, things still look very good. Okay, if you zoom in right now, if you zoom in the past, I don't know, 20 years, things you look bleak. But if you look at the past 100 years, we're still way up, way up. Okay, um, I just the reason why I'm hopeful is because there's too much trade and there's too much money to be made from liberalism and peace and stability and democracy, and the world is too interconnected right now for this tendency towards authoritarianism to be too successful. You know what I mean?
Mm.
When it comes to the powers of authoritarianism and the powers of money making, this is why I like capitalism, because it's within capitalism's interest for things to be stable and for things to be free. So if you want to put capitalism against authoritarianism, I think capitalism will come up winning because money is just too powerful. And that's why I'm optimistic. We got a new member, and I see
Very
that they
quickly,
almost.
we have a new member. Hussein just became Satan's minion. So for that, I will give a very special Ya Hussein. And
Wait, thank you,
Rick
Jose.
donated $5. Thank you so much,
Wait,
Rick. And he's
how did Rick donate? He said he couldn't see it from
because he's saying
India.
thank you, NordVPN. Now I can donate. And guys, if you need NordVPN so that you can become a member, you can support Atheist Republic and use NordVPN because we have an affiliate link. Get a discount. Link in the description.
Yeah, guys, if you want to see, this is why you need a VPN. So if everything that you don't have access to in India or anywhere else, you will have access to it using NordVPN. And NordVPN is okay. So here's the thing. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Everybody says that the VPN that they're recommending is the best VPN. I have no idea if it's the best VPN. Okay. This is the level of honesty you get. Like, I just know it's a good one. I don't know if it's the best, but if you
And
think
you support Atheist Republic at the same time.
yeah. So, by the way, if you don't have a VPN, I don't know what the hell is wrong. Like, everybody knows that you need VPNs for something sometimes. So, if anybody wants a VPN, you might as well use the link that we're providing in the description, because that way we get something out of it, and you don't even have to pay us anything, and we get something from NordVPN. Okay, so use the link in the description to get your VPN. Ibn Riyam keeps trying to come up, but it's not working for some reason. Arjun is here. Should I bring Arjun up, or
Well,
do you
it's
want?
time for me to drop off. So I will say goodbye. I had a lot of fun today.
Nick.
Make sure to like this video, please. And in a few days, 2 days exactly, we will have the news show. So I will see
Yes.
you guys on the news show.
Okay, cool. Arjun is saying in the private chat, "Goodbye, Susie." Goodbye.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Arjun.
All
Bye.
right. Bye, Susie. Okay, let's bring Arjun up. Hi, Arjun.
Hey, Armin, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So before asking the question, just to clarify one thing about the VPN. So this is only for VPNs that have their servers in India. So
Mm.
yeah, so not VPN or whatever VPN that other people have, which is where the servers are based out of other countries. So
So
that
for people who don't know, for people who are coming joining us maybe later, what we're talking about is that new regulations, new limitations for VPNs exist in India. They're telling you that if you VPN providers have to provide the government with the IP address and the identity of the people who are using it, right? And you're saying this is only for VPNs that have their servers based in India.
yes, obviously they
Okay.
cannot control what they are doing outside of their jurisdiction. So
True, but what they can do is demand that VPNs who want to remain active in India need to have their servers in India. You know, like they could deny service. They could like remove the apps for VPNs that don't from Google Play or Apple Store for any VPNs that is not based in India or doesn't abide by. They cannot force them to abide by India's laws, but they could tell them that if you don't abide by our laws, we will not give you access to our market. Can I not do that?
Yeah, they can do that, but I don't, that's not what they're doing right now. I think you can still access VPNs that are based out of India, but
Mhm.
even so, I don't think VPNs as it is are very anonymous. Like whether it's the government or the company, most of the VPN companies log the user data anyway. So um, maybe they can be used to unlock region locked content, Netflix or something, but that's about it.
Um. Okay, but they log the user data, but you could give them not your, you could not use your name, right? I mean, they wouldn't have
No, the
access to
IP
your.
address. Yeah, they
They
have
have
access
access.
to your.
They log your IP address.
Yeah, most companies do. Yeah, I think including NordVPN.
Oh, okay. Well, what the
Yeah.
hell? What the hell is the point of using? You're
VPN
just
is
saying
used
that
to unlock region locked content, not for
no,
privacy.
but everybody tells you that you need a VPN for privacy. Are they
Yeah,
lying to us?
yeah, pretty much. So if you
Oh,
want privacy, it's better to use a Tor network. So which is again,
Tor.
which is pretty illegal in most countries. So yeah,
Mhm. Okay, so guys, look at us. We're being honest here. Okay, we're promoting NordVPN. Link in the description, but we're not. But apparently, it can be used for anonymity. It could use it if you want to have access to things that you don't have access to in your region. Okay, so that's the main purpose. But
yeah.
doesn't it also help you from, I don't know, people stealing your I don't know, people being able to
Yeah,
steal
yeah,
your
that is
passport.
also used. So, for example, if you're using some online multiplayer games, so your IP address is visible to the other players as well. So, to
Oh,
avoid that, I think PewDiePie got docs like that once while playing Among Us or something. So, to hide your IP address from other people, you can do that, but the IP address would
mhm.
still be visible to the company.
Okay, okay. So you're being anonymous from everybody that might accept the VPN itself. Okay, so
Yeah,
as
exactly.
long as NordVPN is not going to come steal your bank password and everything, you're fine. So you could just yes. So
Passwords
it
are
has other
anyway
utility.
encrypted. So yeah,
I'm just kidding. What?
bank passwords and stuff like that are anyway encrypted. So yeah,
Okay, okay,
yeah.
okay. So other
So
passwords. Anyways.
yeah. Anyways,
Mhm.
so the question is, so in a democracy, so we both agree that there should be multiple parties or at least two parties so that there is a healthy competition. So, in your view, what would be the ideal right-wing party?
Ideal right wing party would be well when it comes to social issues or economic issues. Okay, right wing.
Both.
Okay, for me, an ideal right wing party, economically, would be a party that is focusing on free trade and capitalism and deregulation, and you know what I mean. Instead of the right leaning parties that we have that pretend that they're for that, but they are actually pro, I don't know, oil, gun industry, and they take sides, or the oil industry, or different, like they are also pickers and choosers, and they are very much under the influence of lobbyists, so they are not free. And also they're protectionists, like you can see in the US, like right leaning parties are being protectionist. In fact, like this is everything but being for free trade and deregulations, right? So that would be economically, that would be an ideal right leaning um, party, right? And again, not that I'm not against regulation, right? I just want the best regulations to come out of parties fighting with each other, one party fighting for deregulation and the other party fighting for some regulation, and therefore maybe this competition gets you the best regulations, right? So that would be an ideally right leaning party. Social issues, I would like a right leaning party that is not anti-gay, not anti-trans, not anti-women rights. Maybe the thing that the right-leaning party could focus on would be actually supporting free speech, and not pretending to support free speech, but actually supporting free speech. You know what I mean? Like you could see, for example, United States right-leaning parties pretend to be on the side of free speech, and by free speech they mean like not having community standards on social media, which is ridiculous. You need community standards on social media, but they themselves, when it comes to the government influence, they're actually anti-free speech, because they're like they're trying to stop degeneracy, or like, oh my god, they're grooming children and nonsense like that. They ban books. They're in favor of banning movies, banning books, limiting what teachers can say in schools based on what they consider to be child grooming. So they're actually anti-free speech. So that would be an ideal right-leaning party would be a party that is actually defending free speech. You could see, like, for example, in the United States, Trump, who's supposed to be right-leaning, a Republican, he was the most anti-free speech president that I know of in the history of the United States, trying to ban flag burning, trying to use libel laws against reporters, so in the United States, at least, the right-leaning party is actually more anti-free speech than the left-leaning party, right?
Yeah, so as far as the community guidelines in Twitter goes, so don't you think that it would be enough that as far as you're not saying anything that could be considered illegal, that's fine and it goes. So for example, so whatever you can say in a political rally, or whatever you can say in front of media or stuff like that, you can also say in Twitter. So why go the extra step and ban something that could be said on public sphere but not in Twitter?
Well, okay, because you're a private company, right? And you want to provide the best experience for your users, you don't have to just allow everything that is legal, right? You're like, okay, it seems like my customer base would not enjoy this environment that I'm creating if I allow everything. A lot of people that are most of my users are going to find this place to be too hostile and not use this environment. So maybe that's the reason why you want to go
True.
beyond what's yeah.
This is the company's perspective, but as yourself, so would you be for uh, limiting the community guidelines to just whatever that is illegal?
Okay, as Susanna is pointing in the live chat, that would be really difficult to do, because illegal in which country, right?
Yeah,
Because there are
depending on whichever country.
so you have different community guidelines for every country. Like, so basically, two different users
I think
are
that's
going.
how it exists even right now. I think there's a separate guidelines for EU and separate guidelines for other countries. So yeah.
So okay, so you could argue that, given that Twitter is becoming the public forum where a lot of conversation is happening, we should move to that direction. But it just what for the company itself, like the company are like, why would I do that? I'm not a charity case. We're trying to make money here. We're trying to provide an environment where we
Yeah,
know.
true. I'm
Yeah,
not talking about what Twitter will do or will not do. Like I'm asking whether you are for it or not.
I'm for. Well, I mean, I'm for it. Who are we? Whose benefits are we considering here? Like, personally, for us, we would be definitely for it, because we would be allowed back on Twitter, and right now we're banned from Twitter, right? But
Yeah,
like,
but the trade-off is similarly right-wing people can also speak whatever they want. So that would be the trade-off
okay,
if you were allowed. Yeah.
so we're talking about everyone's like, you're talking about the general well-being of the entire planet. Which one would be better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know. It's hard to measure. So
Okay. This is one
so
of the
for me,
complicated questions.
yeah, it's like, so basically what we have to take into account is like, how much harm can people, like, let's say, transphobic. I used to say, believe that it's obvious, the more that if you just everybody let loose on whatever they say, that would be the ideal thing. Okay. And whatever bad ideas are there, let let them just fight it out, and the best ideas will win. Okay. But even though I still believe that, I cannot know that for sure. Like, what if I'm wrong? Like, has that been measured? Has that been studied? Do
What
we
I
have
feel
evidence for that?
is so just by banning those ideas don't die down. They just find a different platform to vent it out, or they
Okay,
double
but
down on their ideas.
I know I believe that too. But do we know for sure? Like, can they spread it as effectively as they used to before? Those other platforms is not a place where people go to that much. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
so won't that be taking the left or the liberal wing taking advantage of this platform just because they have a bigger fan base and only their ideas are being encouraged here?
Okay, so are you talking from a principle way? Are we trying to stay true to our principles, or are we trying to be utilitarian and just figure out what method produces the best result? Because if we want to stay true to your principles or your liberal principles, you might want to say like, okay, yeah, we should allow everyone. Okay,
Yeah,
that
because
okay, but
YouTube
if
is very better than in that respect because it allows people like you also, and it allows. I think there's a lot of gun-related channels in YouTube as well. So I think most of them are even monetized. So
yeah,
yeah,
but the argument is like, would the world be a better place if people with bad ideas were kicked out of YouTube? And technically, that's not against liberal values either, because um, again, they can still speak. They still have free speech, right? But would it serve the world if they didn't have access? People with horrible ideas didn't have access to platforms like this. Okay, I used to think like it's almost definitely a bad idea, but now I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm just skeptical, right? Because I just realized that I don't really have any data to back this off. You know what I mean? Maybe the world would be a better place if people with horrible ideas were removed from these platforms. Like,
yeah.
we don't have a way to measure the harms versus the benefits. We just have this, like, a lot of us liberals have this dogmatic faith in these things without questioning it, like without proving, without being able to point to any form of data that shows that that's actually true always at all times. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
My only issue with the argument that you can still speak outside is in the changing world. I think internet is increasingly becoming the platform to speak on. So it's synchronous to writing a book or something. So banning a book is, I think, is similar to banning someone from a platform like Twitter. Anyways,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
So one.
but again, same with the book. If what's do you like if somebody has a really horrible book and publishers
No, no, no.
are
I'm
saying we're
not
not going
talking
to
about
publish your book,
unbanning any book. I'm just saying about just do whatever it is illegal. So just ban whatever it is illegal. Not
but how do
not.
you know that that's the best policy? How do you know? Do you know for sure?
I don't think that it is the company's prerogative to measure what's ideal for the people or what is
No,
good for the world.
they're just deciding what's companies are just deciding what's good for them. They're not even they shouldn't be even pretending they are doing what's good for the world. Obviously,
Okay.
they're doing, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, as far as Twitter is concerned, it's like it's a dicey field. Yeah, I agree. Anyways,
yeah.
the one last question. So I think you would have heard about the story of the Nyanwapi mosque. I think Oxymoron would be able to better explain that. So, would you think that if in the past some other religious structure was demolished and a mosque was built on top of it, now we should go ahead and undo the wrongs?
No, because wait, so because it was demolished and something was built on top of it, we have to undo it and build back what was there before.
Yeah, so there are three issues here. So Mathura and Varanasi and Kashi. So these are, I think this Babri Masjid is one of the holiest places in Hinduism. So that was the place where apparently Ram was born. And I guess you could say that it is akin to Mecca or something. So it took us
So,
70 or 80 years of legal battle. I think even before independence, there was court cases regarding that. So it took us so much time and relatively so little violence to bring back that temple. So should you think that the same tactic should be applied to all other temples that were destroyed or desecrated?
no, but wait, but wouldn't that imply that we have to destroy the Al Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock to build back the Jewish temple?
Yeah, but for example, many caste
No,
people.
would it? would it imply, like, if we want to apply by
I
the
don't
standard?
know about Israel or something like that. So I don't know what happened there. With respect to India, so people in the left always advocate for undoing the wrongs that are done in the past with respect to black people or with respect to Dalits. So if the same logic can be applied to religious persecution and the
I'm in
yeah.
favor of just letting whatever structure exists right now stand.
But if we
Just
apply
don't.
the same, if we apply the same logic and ban affirmative action or ban reservation, so that would also be doing something that is wrong, right? Or not doing enough to undo the
No,
wrong.
but that would not require for you to destroy a building that is existing right now. Those other doing those things, doing fixing things that were wrong back then. If you do that by destroying someone else's property right now, then you're committing another harm just to fix some other harm that was done before.
It's not someone else's property. I think those are government lands and public
I
mosques.
know.
So,
Well, okay. Well, then it's everyone's property. If government property means it's the people's property.
so would you at least support a litigation to prove that? So if one side is clearly wrong, so at least in those cases we can build back whatever that existed before.
I just think like it's easier to. I think it would be just so much tension and conflict. I
Yeah,
think the
because
easiest
you
the
can
easiest
go
solution
far
is to,
enough.
yeah, you could go far back enough time, and but yeah, but I'm just saying the easiest solution is to just be like, this building is here, let's just keep it, let's just not destroy anything that already exists. That's my solution.
Okay, fair
And
enough.
all right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Bye, man.
Okay, thank you, Arjun. That was
Yeah,
those were good questions, interesting questions. Okay,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
made me think. All right. Ibn Qiyam.
Hello, Armin. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Not too bad. It's 5:30 here in the UK, where I am.
Oh,
Yeah. Did you receive my email by any chance? I sent it
I
last week.
am. I just realized that I have to look for it right now. It's okay. Here, I see it on my to-do list to respond to. Okay, let me actually look for it right now.
Oh,
What
no,
do
no.
I
You can
search
take your
for?
time. You can take your time.
Oh,
It's
hold
not
on.
important. It's not
No,
important.
because I haven't seen it, so I have to search for it. I'm looking for your name. I don't see an email. Okay, hold on. Oh, maybe I misspelled it. Yeah, I'm not seeing a single email. What should I search for?
Yeah, it should be just the name Iban Kayam. But what I'll do is I'll resend it. Maybe I've lost. Maybe you didn't get it or something. I sent it to Susanna as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Susanna got the email. Okay, so I didn't get the email. I'm looking for
Oh,
in my inbox, and I'm not seeing your email. I'll just ask Susanna to forward it to me.
oh, no worries, no worries. Take your
Okay.
time. Take your time. Yeah, yeah. You don't need to respond straight away. I'm still sorting out my audio issues, so you don't have
Okay,
to respond straight away.
I
Yeah.
will. I will. I'm gonna do a talk with you and Oxymoron on the Kashmir issue. That's what it's about, right?
That's the one. Yeah, that's what it's about. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Good.
Okay. By the way, I just want to let you know, like, if I ever say anything like incorrect or you think I'm saying something wrong, you can come at me as hard as you like. I don't mind. I'm not one of these people that is, sensitive. Because in order for us to arrive at a correct position, we need to be critiqued at the end of the day. So the question I have is in relation to China. It's why do you think China headed in like a capitalist direction post Mao? That's basically my question.
Oh, I think they were smart enough to notice. Okay, so they were smart enough to notice that that's the way that you get prosperity, right? And I also think that I've read somewhere that they accidentally noticed how effective letting lesser regulations are, because there was an area in China where for some reason, I don't know, it was because they didn't notice or because they were just excluding them from some regulations on purpose. I don't remember exactly, but I think they noticed how much more prosperous that area became because of this. And I mean, they're not dumb. They have these are very smart people, and they have access to research and data, and they like, even people today who are going a little bit to the other side and including increasing regulation, they know this is not good for prosperity. Like, these are some really smart people with access to a lot of information. So I think that was their motivation. They knew that if they open China to the world market, it will just be good for the economy, and it will be good for, prosperity. I think the harder question to answer is, why would they go the other way when it's so obviously within their best
Yeah.
interest of their people?
That's a really good thing you put at the end, because that's what I want to bring up. So this is what I think. What happened after Mao was that China realized it was attempting to become a communist country in a capitalist world, and it recognized that this was impossible to do, right? And this is what I think the goal is of China. I could be completely wrong in this. This is just what I assume, because the CCP is mainly made up of MLMs, so Marxist, Leninist, Maoists. This is my perception. I could be wrong on that as well, but I think the goal, or what China realized, is, even though our GDP per capita in China at the time was like one of the lowest in the world, it was equal to sub-Saharan Africa at the time, right? But it realized we had the numbers. You compare the numbers, the number of people in China compared to America, and it was basically 5 times. In terms of the population of China, it had 5 times the number of people as there were in America. So it recognized that if we transition into a capitalist country for a period of time, if we even get our GDP per capita to 1/3 of that of America, our total GDP would be almost 3 times that of the US, just based on the demographics. And it realized that then at that period, it can, or if it gets to half the GDP per capita, it can almost crush the capitalist system, and then it can have its end goal of communism, and this can be implemented worldwide. This is what my perception is of what happened. Because if they thought a capitalist system is better than the communist system, why would they remain Marxist, Leninist, Maoists? They just wouldn't. I mean, it's the antithesis to their beliefs. So what I think has happened is they've recognized that we need to grow economically in order to crush the capitalist system, because we have the numbers on our side. What do you think?
I have a different way of looking at it. I don't think most of these, a lot of these politicians are as ideological as we think they are. I think just like most people, they are self-motivated by self-interest rather than commitment to seeing the victory of a certain ideology, right? So I think when it comes to why they're moving like back with increasing regulations is not because they don't know that capitalism works. It's because they're not motivated necessarily by, their main priority is not prosperity for the Chinese people, right? I think everything, if you imagine that the goal is for them to remain in power and for them to hold on to power, if you, instead of like, if you think about them trying to become communists and the victory of communism, then a lot of the things that they're doing doesn't make sense. If you think about them trying to increase prosperity for Chinese people, a lot of what they're doing doesn't make any sense. But if you adjust the lens that you're looking at, if you think about their goal is to just remain in power and not to be able to have anything that challenges them, then with that lens, almost everything they're doing, and if you also assume that they're rational actors, then almost everything they're doing makes a lot of sense, right? So for example, you can't have too much poverty, because if poverty is to a certain level where people's lives are so bad that death becomes not that big of a deterrent, then revolutions and uprisings are a lot more common, right? So that might motivate you to actually care about people's prosperity to some level, so that you will increase economic trade and less regulations, and your economy will grow. But if you care if you focus only on people's prosperity, after a certain level of prosperity, people start caring about human rights, free speech, represent a government that actually represents their need. And also, if you let loose too much the leashes of authoritarian on your people, if you let it loose, then they will come challenge you and they will come remove you from your seat. So if you come and then all of a sudden control the economy, control trade and control regulations in a way that makes sure that you don't lose your control, what at the expense of prosperity for your people, as an authoritarian, you will sacrifice the prosperity of your people in order to make sure that you are in power. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And it could be the case. It could be the case that their goal is simply to remain in power rather than being under Marxist terminology, a vanguard party in order for China to transition into the end state, which is communism. But so you could be right on that. But I do think a lot of the people within the CCP are ideologically driven. And I just think they do have an end goal of uprooting the capitalist system. And I think if anyone has the potential to do that, I think it is China, out of any country in the world, simply because they have the population. They are now they're approaching over the next maybe 100 years. They will have the economy there. And like I said, you might be right in terms of if the country becomes more prosperous, the people will have a tendency to demand more rights, etc., which could lead to the downfall of the Communist Party. That could definitely happen. And I think some people are hoping that does happen. But I think it's important to remember what China was in the past, what the Soviet Union was in the past, the mass starvations, etc., etc. All of this was not communism in itself. It should be considered as a transitionary period in order to arrive at the end goal, which is communism, as demonstrated.
That would never succeed, though. Like, I don't understand how that would happen. Most of the, I don't think China, I don't think any country has ever a chance to make communism succeed in the world. Like, the entire world has submitted to this world liberal order. I mean, and I think China knows that. China knows that China is directly benefiting from it. It would be such a futile effort. I think China's communism is now merely a branding thing. Doesn't have much to do with actual communism. I mean, how would they go about doing that? Like, they have the population. I mean, if they want to even try communism, well, they will become less influential. They will lose all the leverage they have. They will lose all the power they have. And it's just by trying to bring communism, they will just take themselves out of the picture by reducing their power and dominance. And instead of bringing back communism, they will just remove themselves from the equation. Like, I don't think there's any way for them to do such a thing.
But I think their goal is not, say, like maybe a 50, 60-year goal. It's over a very long period of time. And I think
it's hard for me to imagine politicians who have managed to be so focused on becoming powerful and for their own interests to want to bring back the glory of communism for something that they're not going to live to see. And I guess just there are very few people that, like, you need dogmatic religious belief for people to think like that. It's just hard for me. Even if they do exist, there are not that many people like that. But also, these people are smart. I'm just thinking, like, how that would be possible. Even if you're thinking longer term, that is not going to be possible, because communism by itself makes a country weaker. Even if they're thinking long term, by moving towards communism, what will happen is that they will reduce their influence and they will just remove themselves from the equation. You know what I mean?
But that's the whole point. So what I'm trying to say is they're not just trying to. They recognize that, right? They recognize that if they are a communist country in a capitalist world, that they would be weak, which they were. China were one of
No,
the
it's not just a
poorest countries.
communist. No, it's not just a communist country in a capitalist world. A communist country, just in any framework, will become a weak and pathetic country just because it's doing communism.
But
in
not if
whatever
that
framework.
But not if that framework. Not if there was no capitalism within that framework. Then if the world became communist, then they could retain their influence, or they might not even want that influence anymore. If it was if the communism was spread throughout the world, they might not even require that influence that they have currently.
Even if half the world is communist and the other half is capitalist, let's say we get to that point where half the world is communist and the other half is capitalist, okay? The capitalist half will just come and eat the communist half's lunch. It will just dominate and destroy them within like a decade because of how pathetic, weak and pathetic the communist side, because of how weak and pathetic the communist side is. It will just manage to take over it and destroy it very easily after just a few decades.
But if they were able to overthrow the system as a whole,
how?
Right? So we lived because this is the question: how? That is a good question. But I think so that is a really good question, by the way. But I think China thinks that if the world becomes so dependent upon them, that then if they, for example, have
the dependency, the dependency requires them to be rich.
But if they have, and they can do that through capitalism, So, but if they have, for example, say for example, they have half the GDP per capita of the United States of America, their total GDP would be almost 5 times that of America, right? In its totality,
it will drop
or 2.5 times.
It will drop back to like a tenth of the America as soon as they switch to communism again.
No, but if it's that high, don't you think they could influence the world a lot more and then bring it towards communism, the rest of the world? Yeah.
What I'm saying is that as soon as they switch to communism, they will lose all that wealth and all that power within a few decades.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that they just switch to communism, but their influence can push like most of the world, including America, towards communism. If you know what I mean. Their goal is to overthrow the system as a whole, not to get half the world.
How would they do that if they're not doing communism themselves? How do they do that? How do they make the rest of the world communist? Like, tell me how the process is happening. Like, how are they convincing people to be communist if they're using capitalism themselves?
For example, the Belt and Road Initiative, by pushing, their own agenda.
That's capitalism.
Yeah,
okay,
I
so
know,
they're promoting
that's
capitalism. Okay, so tell me when at what point are they going to switch to communism? How did they switcheroo? Like,
no. If China becomes like a world hegemon, like we have with America, then the influence it has over the countries are,
I understand that, but how would they? First of all, China.
That's the big question.
So it's an impossible question. Okay, so first of all, China is not going to become the world hegemon. They're just going to be more influential. It's just going to be a world where power is more evenly split around countries. So it's not going to dominate. Okay, so don't worry about that. But even if they do dominate, I'm just asking, like, the question of, like, okay, now at this point, how are they going to spread communism? Okay, that's an impossible question to answer because there's no way. Like, can you think of a way?
It'd be something I'd have to think about.
Okay, think about it, because I think it's impossible. Because if you do that, you're basically destroying yourself before you do it to other people. You will lose your influence. And even here's the thing: even if let's say China takes over the entire world, okay, and they're like, aha, we tricked you. Now we're going to switch to communism, okay? If they do that, they will weaken themselves, okay, and they will weaken their power. And at some point, because of the less power they have over people, some places in the world will be able to switch to capitalism, and eventually they will grow faster and become powerful and take over. You know what I mean? Even if but I just can't imagine a scenario where China is taking over and now, like, hey, we're going to undo everything that made us this powerful and switch to communism. If that impossible hypothetical ever happens, it will just open the door for a new model for it to eventually come and take over whatever system is at impact.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's difficult for me to see why, because MLMs are like religious people. I'll be honest with you, their ideology is dogmatic. If you've ever met them online on Twitter and whatnot, and I think a lot of the CCP are, but they are intelligent people. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they know what they're doing, but I think they have that dogmatism. If when you read the works of Marx and Lenin and Mao, it can drive that dogmatic ideology. It can kind of push that into you. You're probably right. You're probably right, Armin. But this is just something I just thought of a few minutes ago, and I thought I need something interesting to come up with because I still haven't gone over the Ganam. I haven't gone over the Ganam thing, so I'll bring that up next week. I promise you, next Friday morning.
How about this? We could just go read the methodology because I read the methodology on the Persian stream.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who were
yeah.
I mean, halfway through, but a lot of people who were skeptical about it became less skeptical about it. So we could do that in English as well.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Because that's what I wanted to discuss is the methodology, because I think So no, we'll do that. I'll let someone else come on. But that's cool.
Okay, no, I'm actually about to leave because I need to get going. But this is I always enjoy your questions, and because it's very nuanced, the things that you bring up. So I
try my best, but sometimes even I listen back to our conversations and I realize, look, I made a sweeping generalization there where I was incorrect, and I realize how hard it is to be nuanced when you're doing things live on air. So I respect people a lot more. Even I had a conversation with Harris and Nuria last week, and I was a lot nicer to them this time around than I was the first time, and I got so much from them as a result. It works so much better. I think,
you're right.
So, but with you, I think you can go as hard as you want, and I don't think you mind. Whereas I think other people are a bit more sensitive. So, cool.
All right. No, that's sweet. Okay, that's a perfect way to end this. But thank you.
All right, nice one.
Looking forward to our future conversation about Gaman and also Kashmir and maybe some other conversations.
Yeah, I'm just sorting out my audio for that as well. So I'm just getting that sorted. That's basically what I put in my email essentially.
Awesome. Sounds good. Okay.
No worries. All right. Thank you. Cheers.
All right. Bye. All right, guys, I'm going to head out. We have a very upset Tanky in the live chat. I was enjoying that. Like, Payman in the live chat, this guy is so triggered. Like, the Red Army was a joke to you? Guy, go read his comments. It's so beautiful when Tankies come here and they get triggered because we're like dumping on communism. It's the most glorious thing ever. Tankies get triggered easier than anybody, easier than most Muslims or Hindus. Like, we should do more anti-communism streams just to get this beautiful oh wait, that's why we have this. Look at that. Commie tears. This is what I got from Music Guy. Still warm. Payman, look at what I have. Commie tears. This is okay, cool. All right, guys. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the bell notification, make sure you leave a comment. Susanna saying so much fun on the stream today. Cool. All right, guys. Talk to you guys later. Oh, yeah. Everyone like the stream. Yes, please like the stream. If you didn't like the stream, dislike the stream. Great stream, guys. Okay, cool. Bye, guys.